talk about stress, right?
Yeah.
And we're talking about how to stress less or de-stress over the holiday season. We did talk a couple weeks ago about a few things, and we wanted to add to that today. I welcome Adam Arbor. He's a transformational coach who has like so many gifts. I cannot explain to you how many gifts he has, but weight loss, functional and human performance, basically, um, for how we can function every day. If you don't have those things, life gets difficult and things creep in as you're unhealthy, right?
Hmm.
So making daily choices, small attainable habits you can stack on to what you're already doing to make your life vibrant and healthy,
Yeah.
right? Live
Which is so important.
healthy longer as opposed to living life longer unhealthy, as we're seeing in the community, in long-term care facilities, like with my parents and my mother-in-law, and I saw it in myself as my um, physical activity declined. I could see the ramifications coming out the other side, right? If you
Hmm.
take action, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Hmm. Yeah. And on that note, I'll bring it back to something really early stage that makes it very relatable to people, I would think. It's like when we're born, we can't really move that much, and then we have these different developmental things that we do. We first have to learn how to like lift our head, and then to roll over, and then cross body patterning, crawling. You have to go through all those stages before you actually have the ability to stand and walk. And then you start moving around more dynamically, right? And you can continue building those skills. But if you don't use it, you lose it. And with our physical body, that's one thing you want to keep in mind, because if you keep using it, it'll keep working, and if you don't, it won't. And you know, I think one of the most important things to know here is that our body is meant to move first. That's the basis of what our body is designed to do, right?
And I see in the later stages of life, like I see with my granddaughters, like you said, they're learning how to crawl. They keep going. Actually, at birth, you put them on their tummy and you put them away from the mother, and they will find their way to the mother.
Mm,
Survival instinct, right? Um,
yeah.
how to walk. It doesn't matter how many times they fall, they get up and they try again until they can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody has told them they can't.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of stage, like I see, even not even the end of stage of life, but like say the last third, if you want to break it into quarters even, you see that people are more and more, all right, I want to get my health in order. I want to get strength in order. I want to be more flexible. I want to be able to get up off the floor to play with my grandkids. And often what happens is the first two thirds, we're busy with well, we're born in whatever circumstance we're given. We're busy with school, we're busy with career, with family, and we neglect ourselves. And I'm seeing more and more online people who are, they say, oh, fitness, you're 30. I wish I could go back 30, 31 years. I know what I know now and do it then. But people in their 50s and 60s or beyond who are taking control of their health by doing the things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here today we're talking about not that, but how can you stress less over the holidays and actually de-stress. It's not just over the holidays, it's in life, right? No matter what your age. But
Mm-hmm.
today we're talking about over the holidays. can bring, as we spoke a couple weeks ago, heightened anxiety, added commitments, jobs to do. If you're entertaining in your home, maybe things you have to do and declutter in your house to be able to entertain, added expenses. It can bring on a lot of overwhelm and additional stuff to your life that may be going smoothly, and that's great. So it's bringing like a lower level, but maybe you've also other things going on in your life and it's bringing on a heightened level. So how to navigate through that. We talked last week for sure about physical activity
Mm-hmm.
and the effect that has. I shared by a psychologist that developed some questions you can ask yourself to navigate through that. We also have to consider staying on track because you can become derailed
Mm-hmm.
when you're overwhelmed, busy. We talked about food prep, planning, like those things, right? But then you've got to stick to that. Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be honest, there'll be stuff in the freezer, and I'm like, I'm hungry now. What am I going to go get? Oh, like, okay, I'm going to drive home and go to my freezer and unthaw that, or I'm going through the drive-through, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Think about that, and we think about learning from Doris's experience right there. It's like, what would you want to do? Well, if you're going to be going out, you're not sure exactly what you're doing, where you're going. You never know, especially if you're getting into Christmas shopping. So one of the best things you could do is eat right before you leave. And then if you're not sure how things are going to pan out, then bring a snack with you, right? Because obviously you're going to have less of a chance that you're going to just be grabbing something random, and you won't be wasting your time or money on food that isn't going to serve you and keep you feeling good throughout the holidays.
Yes. And the other day, we have like my original teaching friends, educators from like 19, when did I start there? Robert Land at 1988. And when I started there, they had a thing once a month. You either go out, whoever can come, or you different people offer their home. So
Mm.
since 1988, we've done that once a month. And of course, when the blip, we're calling it the blip, happened and everything shut down, that all shut down. And I had just yesterday, actually, um, it's a monthly reunion, right? And there were like, I think 18 of us. The eldest now is 88. No, sorry, 80.
Mm-hmm.
I'm aging her, 80. I'm the baby of the bunch at 61. But what I did is I went and they had a great special. It was beautiful, like a full-size salad and any wrap you wanted that was, offered separately on the menu. And you could get both for a special at lunch. And I thought, oh, great, I'll get both. I said, I'll eat half of each.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought the other half home and treated my spouse. Right?
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So could I have forced down the whole serving of each? Absolutely. But I know I would be uncomfortable because you know me. I eat small portions. I should be like the size of a pencil, but for other reasons I'm not. But if you do happen to go out, you can be mindful about what you're ordering on a menu,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can look at, like you said, something that has protein. Because we often think, oh, I'll get a salad and it's just like lettuce and vegetables, which I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but we know that you're then later going to be craving more.
Mm-hmm.
Is protein important within each meal?
Mm. Yeah, and I'll relate it back to stress as well. Um, Protein is going to be great for sustaining you in terms of your energy level, but also in terms of your energy level. Protein is really important. Other things are going to help sustain you within a meal that are going to be having a fat source and fiber, right? So protein, fat, and fiber, those are going to sustain you. Carbohydrates, you don't want to avoid them. What you want to avoid is having too much of them or having them on their own, which often happens during the holidays. There's treats around, and it can be a very bad cycle that brings you in the wrong direction quite quickly. If you start into eating treats early into the holidays and you eat them in between meals, you'll notice quickly that you'll start craving them. So there's all of that, and I'm going to relate it back to stress because we're keeping this stress and holiday centric. So imagine that you are energetic, but you haven't eaten well and you're out. Well, eventually your blood sugar is going to drop, right? So say your blood sugar drops, you don't have anything with you. How do you think you're going to handle stress? Well, you're not going to handle it very well, right? You're not going to handle it very well at all. Now, if you ate something that didn't properly sustain you, especially before you left your home and you're on the road doing whatever, well, that's going to be even worse because then you're going to have a crash, right? So you're going to be crashing, you're going to be tired. And what happens when you're tired? You have things like self-doubt creep up. But in the scenarios we're talking about the holidays, you might not be aware of the self-doubt because there's so much going on. What you'll probably notice is that the agitation that comes out.
Agitation, mood swings, and you might situations differently than you might otherwise.
Right. So obviously, eating the right foods and having your macronutrients balanced is going to be really beneficial in terms of your body regulating, and your body regulating means also that you're going to be emotionally regulated. You're going to be able to handle stress better. You're going to have better energy. You're going to make better decisions. And the thing is, during the holidays, you're going to be making decisions that are not the usual decisions that you're making, right? There's a bunch of different things that you're doing that you're not used to doing. So you want to be as grounded as you
There
can.
are temptations. Like honestly, the holiday season brings out the best food, treats, people, extra beverages, like everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we're there. That's pretty good in terms of covering food. Other than that, if we want to give anybody who's listening who might not know, a little formula, it'd be, basically if you're trying to, when you're putting together a meal, just make sure that you have a decent portion of veggies, a decent portion of protein, a decent portion of maybe a fruit or carbohydrate like potatoes or rice, right? Just make sure you have some of each of those things, without getting too specific about quantities and all that during this discussion. Just make sure that you have a little bit of all of those things, and then you're going to be pretty good to go.
Would you say, because there's dessert, there's extra desserts available, would you cut some of the carbs, like the carb portion, out so that you can have that dessert and not have it put you over the top? Or do you just say, blow it to the wind for today?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a great question. Yeah, that's a great question. So, if we go back to one of our group calls not that long ago, we were talking about different strategies, right? Because, if that's coming up over the holidays, it's going to come up more than once. So the thing is, if you just say, screw it for today, well, chances are you're probably going to do that again and then again and again, right? So it's good to know what your strategy is. Maybe that's not the one that works for you. If you are trying to very specifically hit, say, a caloric target during those holidays, if you're sticking to that most of the time, and you're keeping that as a strong goal through the holidays for yourself, then maybe you do want to consider, it's like, okay, I'm going to have this dessert, which is going to be mostly carbohydrates most of the time, so I'm going to cut out a little bit of carbohydrates. So that is a great calorie balancing strategy if that's what you want to do, right? I think that it's good to talk about these things in two lights, right? If somebody, because in the Vitality Matrix method, the health and weight loss program that I provide to people, that that might be a strategy to take out some of the carbs. But I would also talk about the health side of things, right? Which it can be motivational as well. It's like, well, you can have that thing, you can cut out those calories, you can have that, and you know what? Your calories will be in the right place. But if you do that again and again, well, you're going to be eating, say, a lot of sugar, and that's going to throw off your microbiome, and then you're going to have more cravings and whatnot. Now, in saying all of that, like Doris said, it's the holidays, right? So, it's the holidays are a time to be a little more relational, to loosen up on things. So here's what I notice happens generally. It's like people could be on track before the holidays and then loosen up, but they just loosen up completely. Why? Because they have certain patterns and maybe certain things that they're following during the rest of the year. And then they don't actually make a plan or strategy that works for them during the holidays. And I think that's a big key. It's individualization that matters when it comes to those kind of food choices. So what I had everybody do in our group was to write out what strategies they were going to use, ones that they would feel great about, like wanting to do it, not saying this is what you have to do, but saying, okay, here's the goals you're aimed at. The holidays are here now. What do you want to reasonably do so that you get through the holidays maybe a little better than last year and that you feel good about it?
And you know what? Enjoying the holidays doesn't mean you have to be a glutton. Is that a word? Glutton.
Yeah.
Look at like the overboard that goes and it's spread out on the table. So like one of my strategies is I do love appetizers, but then the full course meal, like how many courses are going to come after? I know I would traditionally fill up on the appetizers, and then I'm like, oh Lord, here comes the food. I'm not going to have that go to waste. I'm going to fill up on that, and then I literally would be like busting.
Mm-hmm.
So a strategy that I have in plan is to, and I've done it here when we have company, I limit
Mm-hmm.
the number of appetizers because, like, let's face it, like the main course is the cream of the crop, in my opinion. Although, yeah, well, it's neither here nor there because some people love appetizers like I do, but you're filling up and then you're not enjoying the main display, so to speak. So
Mm-hmm.
in my house, I limit the appetizers, and if I'm going somewhere, I have limited, not cut out because I love them, but I
Mm-hmm.
take less of each on my, like,
Yeah.
eyes or your stomach.
Yeah, I have a slightly different strategy than you. If I'm out and whoever I'm with, we decide to get appetizers, usually I'll get appetizers that are, more protein based, like maybe I have calamari or something like that, and I don't mind leftovers. So if I fill up on appetizers and I do get a reasonable amount of protein in, then you know what? Maybe I eat more of the salad from the main, and I'll actually consider how many carbohydrates I had with the appetizers, and I'll judge how much of the carbohydrates I want to have from that. And then in terms of protein, well, then I can save a decent chunk of that too. So maybe I save 2/3 of the protein from there, and now I have another meal for later on. So my strategy is a little bit different because I don't mind leftovers. So if you don't mind leftovers, that's a great way of going about it because then you have a meal that you don't have to prepare later on as well, which is awesome. Talking about stress, again, you know, a big part of the food side of things during the holidays that can be extremely beneficial is to plan a little bit, which we talked about last week. A little bit of planning goes a long way. And if you make one meal, if you don't mind leftovers, at least make two meals for yourself, or if it's with two people, a partner, then four meals. If you have kids, then you know what, make even more. Just make a lot of food because during the holidays, what happens? We're overwhelmed. Why? Well, we have a little bit less time than usual. We have more things that we're thinking about, right? So you want to be as efficient as possible. You want to cook less times, cook more food, be as prepared as you reasonably can so that you don't have the stress of thinking about that next meal, which can be daunting at times, right? Like especially when you're tired and overwhelmed, you really want to be thinking about what you're going to make for your next meal when you're already overwhelmed.
Or you've done all the shopping and oh gosh, now I gotta cook and what, my fridge is empty, I gotta go shop, then I gotta come home, then I gotta cook. So I do a lot of batch cooking of stuff that I know freezes well, like chilies, soups,
Mhm.
like chicken breast. You can portion it even ahead and pre-wrap, and then you can throw that in a salad, and it's easy. Some things
Mhm.
go well, but there are a lot of things that do, so that you can, it's a grab and go from your home, and you know what you've put in it.
Mhm.
The other thing about stressing less, is the holiday season can bring a lot of people together. And as human beings, we don't always,
Jive.
mm, perfect, perfect word. And one of my strategies was, or is, it's been my whole life, is go immerse yourself when you're in that social setting with the people that you do jive with, right?
Mhm.
It doesn't negate the other person, it's just whatever it is. But don't deny yourself or other people, don't deny other people of your presence.
Mhm.
Avoid the social setting, because there might be one person there that rubs you the wrong way, right?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
dozens of other people there who will enjoy you, and who you will enjoy, and you don't have to focus on the thing that rubs you the wrong way, or who you don't jive with. Like, um,
Mhm.
does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that, what you put your focus on, that's going to have a big effect over your state. So if you're focusing on that, a particular person that bothers you, well, you're not going to be your best self then, and then you're going to be taking away of, from everybody, because that's going to have an effect on you. It's going to have an effect on anybody. So you might as well put yourself around the people and in the places where you're going to feel your best, so that you are your best, and then you'll add to that situation, as opposed to, like you said, focusing on something that would be negative.
Absolutely, because as we know, our brains, they tend to
Mhm.
be negative. They're there to protect us, and they scan for the negative, the dangers, the this, the that, da, 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 right? That's
Mhm.
what it does. But if you know that, you can overcome that.
With your focus,
Yes. Yeah.
right? Um, Another thing I think that's important to talk about in terms of being around more people, social situations, and stress during the holidays is that, we're not all accustomed to being around as many people as we're going to be around. Even if you're a very social person, you might be at a lot more social events than you're used to during the holidays. You'll
Bigger,
already
bigger. It's,
bigger, yeah,
yeah.
bigger, more stuff going on, more stimulus than you're used to. You're out shopping, there's lots and lots of people around, right? There's sounds,
I
noise.
shop.
Pardon?
I hate shopping.
Right? Yeah, right. And and the thing is, it can be, if you go out and try to say while you're shopping at once, then you're probably going to burn yourself out, and that would lead to making statements like that, where it's like, "I hate shopping," right? But
Or you take it out when you come home. You're stressed, overwhelmed. You're ready to blow your gasket, and you come,
mhm.
and your spouse might say something that rubs you the wrong way, and you blow. I call it blow your top, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? So the thing is, self-care is really important, and that's what I'm going to get to here. So you could think about something that's easily understood about self-care. Let's say that taking a bath at the end of the night, you find that really relaxing. Maybe use some essential oils, like Doris could talk about. You just get yourself into a very nice, a very relaxed state, right? So you can use essential oils then, and since I mentioned essential oils, you could also use essential oils at any other time of day. So something like, say, lavender is relaxing to most people. And the cool thing about our olfactory sense is that when you smell something, there's no gate in our brain that stops that from having the effect that that smell would have. Like all other stimulus coming into our body, no matter what it is, there's a gateway in our brain
Yeah.
that where you can actually take it in or not. But when it comes to smells, it doesn't. So you could use that at night, but you could also do that during the day. And this is where I'm going with this.
Take it with you. Like it's our olfactory nerve. If you pinch
Hmm.
the bridge of your nose, You might look dumb like me, but there it is. It goes in, and it's like a direct text message to your brain that then signals the body to release what you need as an individual.
Hmm.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. Awesome. So now thinking about the shopping and thinking about being overstimulated, right? If you let that just build up all day, then you could potentially blow up. And if you do blow up, if you do blow up, it takes your body like it could take up to 7 hours, 8 hours for your body to recover from being angry for like a few minutes or even a minute. It doesn't take much. And then your immune system is down, right? You're going to be craving foods, you're going to be more easily agitated, and a slew of other things. You're not going to be in your best place. That is for certain. So you don't want to wait till the end of the day when you're done to lay in a bath and relax yourself so you can sleep. It's going to work okay, but guess what? Your cortisol levels are still going to be high from the rest of that day, and you're probably not going to sleep that well. And then what happens? Well, the next day you get up, you're not feeling fully recovered. You're not going to be as energetic. You're going to be, again, more agitated. You're going to have more cravings. It's a bad cycle. So during the holidays, what can you do so that you don't do that during the day? So I'm going to throw a couple out here, and I'm sure Doris will have a couple ideas too. So imagine you're out in these social situations and there's all the stimulus and you never take a break. That's what most of us do. It's like you go out, you never take a break. So you go shopping from one store to the next store to the next store, or you're at somebody's place and there's all this, you're socializing and you just keep doing it. Maybe you're not, even if you're a social person, you might need a break from that because it's a lot of stimulation. So one thing I would recommend is that you really pay attention to that and take little micro breaks, especially if you can take a little break by yourself. Or you could be around there with somebody else and they could be doing their own thing too if you're there with a partner or whoever you're there with. But you'll want to take some time to pause, reflect, bring your body down, calm it down a little bit
Mm-hmm.
so that you don't burn yourself out. You have to pace yourself. So it's not just, and pacing yourself isn't just about the speed at which you're doing things. I mean, you got to take breaks from everything that you're doing. If you're walking around, sit down for a bit.
Especially over the holiday season, but that's a strategy through life. We often okay, I'm at work. Well, as an educator, the bell would go at 3 o'clock and then, I got to jump and go run to the next thing. No, you got to take some time to transition, break, right? You got to give yourself that downtime to transition to the next thing. Otherwise, you're always in that heightened state, which leads to, inflammation, which over time leads to dis-ease.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'll throw out a few things here that I think people could do in transition. And I think that, one of the better recommendations we can give about stress over the holidays because we went through a lot of planning last time and we talked about a lot of different tips for the holidays. But beyond all that, I think talking about these little micro breaks is really important because that is what I think people really need is to figure out what they want to do while they break up the day. Because if you don't break up the day, that's when you get burnt out. It's like, if you think about, this is a little bit of an aside, but if you're walking around all day long, you sit down at home, well, as soon as you sit down, your body's like, okay, now I am done. So so when we're out, if we're out busy all day long, what people want to do, what your body wants you to do when you get home, if you're tired, is to sit down. But if you do that, then you're probably going to be out for the count, which means that you're not going to want to do anything else that you probably need to get done at home. And then, it ends up being 8, 9, 10 at night. Who knows what's going on? Maybe you're trying to wrap gifts last minute or something like that, or you're trying to plan for an event and it's later than it would normally be. You're stressed out. You're agitated. You're trying to do all of this. You're burnt out because you didn't take a break. Yeah, right? This is what happens to people. So in order to avoid that, what I suggest is you be very mindful about what you're doing. So if it's a socializing and you're immersed with a bunch of people, well, maybe take a little bit of a break aside for yourself, maybe check your phone to see if there's some messages you have to answer, because oftentimes I think we feel, people feel pressured to stay in these situations, and then there's all these things that are kind of getting backed up. Maybe you need to communicate with somebody, but before any of that happens, it's just like pause, check in with yourself, right? Just pause, check in with yourself first, and then decide what you're going to do. So there's the pause, check in, and then decide. Do you just want to sit there and breathe, go through some breathing technique? Do you want to sit there and distract yourself with social media, which could be fine, because sometimes we always talk about how bad, say, social media is, right? And you don't want to be doing that a lot, but sometimes just having a distraction like that can be a healthy thing, because it's,
or you're catching up with, like,
yeah, you catch up. Maybe you don't want to,
right?
yeah, you can't be focused all the time. You have to have times where you're not focused too, so it can actually be therapeutic. Not saying that that's the best thing,
Yeah.
but for some people that can be very therapeutic. So if you're not doing it all the time and you need a break from being focused on getting things done or talking to people, whatever, maybe you sit there for 5 minutes and you just don't think about anything and you just let yourself go to that. Other things that I suggest to some of the people that I work with do is, and there's a few people that do this at different times, is use sound therapy. So I use some very specific sound therapy during the day, which induces an alpha brainwave state, which, if there's any anxiety you have, it'll take you away from that place of anxiety, and it'll bring you into that alpha state, which is great for creativity, which is great for focus, which is great for productivity. And just sitting down, my brain is probably used to getting into that pattern. So, I could listen to one of these audios for 5 minutes to 10 minutes and it'll have an effect for hours, right? But either way, that can be extremely helpful. So relaxing, maybe doing just breathing and chilling, looking far away in the distance, listening to an audio like that, reflecting on your day, thinking, maybe you do a little planning. I would suggest first, though, it's like the process we went through. It's like pause. So you want to create some space for yourself away from everything. So you want to pause, check in, and decide what you're going to do. And for me, that might be a thing I do, is just sit there, listen to one of those audios, breathe, chill out, maybe catch up, whatever it is that you need to do. The key is that you pause and think about that. You pause first, then you think about that, then you act on it, as opposed to not thinking and just doing something else random.
You said there about, the sound therapy and that kind of thing. We often hear meditation, and that can mean a lot of different things for different people. It could be prayer. It can
Mm-hmm.
be things. And I've recently tried the Lotus Sutra. It's
Mm-hmm.
chant where you just say the words, staring at
Mm-hmm.
the wall, or you can have a script there. And for me, religion has become, which maybe people question. I ask, which religion is the right religion? Well, you know what? It's whatever aligns to you that can bring you peace, that calm, tranquility. And so I've tried that chant, and it has opened up some pathways. Meditation, yes, for sure. And you've taught me I don't have a nice voice. The Om,
Yeah.
like that you might want to share in a minute, with just while you're driving. Practicing gratitude. I think over the holidays we've talked a lot about looking for the triggers and the root causes, and that might not be the right time to delve into that, like over the holidays, but maybe being a little bit aware of that. Like, I know I'm triggered by this person, or I know I'm triggered if I'm in a big crowd. And maybe, deciding if you've got 3 events, do you have to go to all 3? Maybe go to the 2 that you're okay with, whomever's there, or if it's a smaller crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's that social anxiety as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like for some people, yes, I want to be out. The bigger the crowd, the better. And for other people, they want to retreat into their cocoon. Like that's not their thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what's being presented to them during the holiday. So I will add to that, like you said, aromatherapy, there are several, like we have a, you know, adaptive, there's frankincense, balance, serenity. There's so many things. You just have to put like a drop or two or roll it. You know, there's ready to go rollers. You just roll it on your wrists or your palms. Inhale your temples, um, your neck, back of your neck, and even the bottom of your feet, believe it or not. People think the bottom of my feet. Yes. If you were to take a drop of peppermint, which if you're feeling tired is an uplifter, or it can be, you know, helpful for tummy troubles over the holidays. We have, you know, we're eating things maybe we wouldn't normally eat. So peppermint is you can look it up. It's a natural way to help with your digestive system. But if you were to take a drop of peppermint and put it on the bottom of your feet, you're going to taste it in your mouth within seconds. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know we're getting late into our live, but you want me to jump into a little bit of stuff? Not a lot, a little bit related to meditation?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, like Doris said, there's a lot of different ways that people think about meditation. And we're not going to get into, you know, exactly what it is, because it would take a little bit to really describe that. But, you know, a lot of times people think about meditation, though, as being a thing that you do at a particular time, which is true. There's that practice of meditation, but the whole point, well, not the whole point, but one of the purposes of meditation is to get yourself into a meditative state, right? So it's like you're calm.
It's not like, okay, I'm meditating now for 5 minutes, or I'm in
Mhm.
and doing this for the hour. It's about,
Mhm.
like you said, that state of
Mhm.
through your life,
Yes,
through what you're doing minute by minute.
exactly. Now, I won't I won't deny that if you have a meditative practice, depending on what it is, it can be very powerful. And today I actually did meditation, and I'll talk about that a little bit too. And the effect of me doing that is that right now I feel very grounded. My body feels looser. I just feel like I'm in more of a health state. I'm relaxed, you know, my awareness is expanded. A lot of great things.
Yes,
Pardon?
I feel your energy.
Yeah, you can feel the difference with a person too, right? Like you can see it. I can call it out. I've called it out with people before that I've seen again and again throughout my life, and then all of a sudden I see them one time. I'm like, "Have you been meditating?" Like I've done that, and you know what? The answer every time that I've called that out has been yes, because you can literally feel it in people when they've been doing it, especially if it's consistently done, right? Um, but I'm going to just go through a couple of things briefly. So one is one of the ways you can use your breath to quickly relax your body. So one of the best things in terms of breathing techniques that we can do is the following. You breathe in your nose twice. So you breathe in once, basically as much air as you can get in. Then you breathe in a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And then you breathe out your mouth, and you can make a sound like, ah, like that. Or you can make more of a humming sound if you want. It's like, ah, you can do it like that. That's basically 2 breaths in, ah. And when you breathe out your mouth, you're relaxing your body while you do that, right? So it's been proven through scientifically that that particular technique, 2 breaths in the nose, at the mouth once, that relaxes you really well. Most of us have heard of belly breathing. That's going to work too. Because Doris mentioned chanting, I'm going to say this one because honestly, what I'm about to say is, as far as I know, the most powerful way to bring your body into a parasympathetic state. Parasympathetic, you know, sympathetic, fight or flight, parasympathetic, rest, digest, relaxation, right? The most powerful way I know, and which is why at some point I probably went through the Om mantra. There's more to the Om mantra than what I'm about to say, but it's a very powerful component of it. So when we hum, the vibration vibrates our vagus nerves, because there's two of them, right? And when that vibration happens of that nerve, it increases the tone of the vagus nerves, which then calms our body. And if you're actually paying attention to your heart rate and you do that, you can see your heart rate drop. And if your heart rate's elevated because of something that's going on and you do that, you'll notice it'll drop it down. You'll notice it right away. And on top of that, I'll tell you that there's certain people out there whose central nervous system is just way out of whack. And you can actually get a procedure that probably costs around $10,000 right now, where they insert this little device into your neck, which creates that stimulation of the vagus nerve to calm the central nervous system.
And think of someone who needs that.
Right? So I don't know if this is what you were saying earlier, Doris. You mentioned something about the car, but I've actually had people do this. Like people that are trying to just maybe they're feeling anxious, they're been overwhelmed lately, there's a lot going on. It's like there's one opportunity you have where there's nobody else around where you could utilize this technique and it's not going to cause any problems.
2 minutes.
And that would
What's a few minutes if the rest of your day is going to go smoothly, right?
Right? Exactly. So during the holidays, if you're on your own, you could do this because you could do it in your car. You could sit down in your car. You don't have to do anything special. You can sit there and just hum. And I'd recommend doing the deepest hum that you can do, because if you're getting to the depth of your voice, then it's going to be stimulating your root chakra. And if it's stimulating your root chakra, that's going to be extremely grounding, right? So you don't need to know anything else, but if you go to the depth of your voice, it's going to be grounding, which is exactly what you generally need during the holidays, right? So you really could do like an ohm if you wanted to do the actual ohm sound, or you could just hum really deep, and that's enough to do that. And you'll notice if you do that for a few minutes, breathe in your nose, then you're breathing out your mouth, humming like that, you'll notice you'll become way calmer and you'll be more grounded and you'll be more present, you'll be less agitated. So I've actually recommended this to a number of clients in the past. It's like, well, are there times for people who have times of the day where they're driving to school, to work, whatever the case may be, it's like, do this. And it's helped them immensely, right?
Other analogy that I came across, and I think it helps too, is, we all in our life, it's not always going to run smoothly. So you're going to have obstacles and things that, the holiday seasons, even though it may be a happy time, for some it may not be, but it's going to heighten the overwhelm, is recognizing, being aware is the first thing. If you're running around unaware and just you're trigger happy, you're just blowing around, you're blowing your top, you're exploding, you're taking it out on everything around you, and you have no awareness, sorry for you. But that if you become aware, you know what? I notice that I'm blowing my top and I'm taking this out here and there. I notice that I'm this, that. Then that's the first step, the awareness. And then, yes, you can look towards these other things. But one of the things that I came across was thinking of that thing that is triggering you, or the thing that's causing you stress, the thing that's heightening your anxiety, or your anxiousness. You can feel your shoulders rising up, and looking at it like a hot coal, like a hot coal in the fire. There it is. It's right there. Well, I can touch it and have it burn me, or I can use the poker that you use in a fire or whatever. And I see you. I can see you right now, but you're not going to penetrate me. You're not going to burn me. I'm going to use my poker. I see you. I know what you are, and I don't have to absorb that. I can push you away with the poker. I can push that away in that moment. And one of the things that in the yoga that I do, it's very intense. And some of the things we do for 50 seconds, some of the things we do for 90 seconds, and you think you're about to die. Are you really going to die if you hold that pose for 90 seconds, or that plank? So it kind of teaches you that, to process an emotion, if you can hold on for that 90 seconds, right? You maybe don't have to react to that emotion. you can let it go. Same idea as the poker. Okay, there it's hot. I'm take the time to go get the poker. I see you, and I'm going to push it away because it doesn't have to push you over the top. It doesn't have to affect the decisions you make, how you react to another human being. And I honestly, I have to say that I have struggled with that, especially when things happen that are out of my control.
Mm-hmm.
Out of you, out there are control, right? You have to have,
Yeah.
and when this thing goes that way, you're like, what do I do now, right? And
Mm-hmm.
differently than if everything, all your ducks are in a row. Life isn't going to be that way. It's
No.
not always going to be in a row. And, in part, they say, gratitude and affirmations. I totally agree. When things go amok, I'm grateful because I'm here, right? What's the
Mm-hmm.
not here? So then what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
Mm.
And during this time, there's going to be a lot more variables. There's going to be a lot more things changing that are out of your control.
Yeah.
And depending on where you're at on your, let's say, spiritual path. And when I say that, I mean, you've figured out how to get past, you've worked on your limiting beliefs, you've noticed things that agitate you, you've changed perspectives on them, you've learned how to accept things, because a lot of times when you're getting agitated, it's the question to ask yourself as well, what are you not accepting? Because if you're just in the flow, accepting everything that's happened, you're going to be all right. But if you're in a situation where you're not accepting what's happening, well, then you're resisting. So you're pushing. So something's pushing you, and you're pushing, and something's pushing you, right? And you can feel that. It does not feel good. So, depending on where you are in your spiritual path, it's going to be easier or harder to deal with the holidays, right? So
Yeah.
I'm saying this because I don't want to invalidate somebody's experience being challenging, because you know what? If it's challenging, it'll be challenging for one person and not another, and they could be in the same situation. And I just want everybody that's listening here to know that that's very much changeable, and it's related to doing two things, shadow work and light work. And when I say light work, it's like the things that elevate yourself, to make that easy, because some of us have heard of these terms, some of us haven't, I'm sure. But light work is like all the things you do that kind of elevate yourself. Doris mentioned one thing, working on gratitude, right? Looking for solutions on a regular basis, looking for the silver lining. There's a lot of things you can do.
Look for what you did do right instead of the wrong.
Yeah. And in others too,
So,
right?
yes. In
Right?
we look at the flaws, and the flaws might be like this, but when you look at the whole person, there's so much more.
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly.
acceptance doesn't mean, what was the word? Acceptance doesn't mean that it has to penetrate.
Mm-hmm.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. Acceptance
Yes.
mean that you've conceded, you have given your control, you've just accepted whatever that thing is,
Mm-hmm.
just not for you.
Yeah.
For you. Or if it's something that's happening in your life that you can't control, accept it's not in
Mm-hmm.
control. I'm going to go focus on the things that are in my control.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And that's all you can do. And when you're focusing on what you can control, well, that's where you have an opportunity to shift whatever's happening, your own state, etc. Right. So many of us focus on what's not in our control. And if you do that, well,
Yeah.
then your focus is in a place of complete uncertainty, right? If it's out of your control and you're trying to control it, well, and you can't, well, you're in a state of uncertainty and you don't have, and you lack even more control. The more you try to control that you can't control, the less control you feel like you have,
Yeah.
right? And that's a bad place too. So there is that whole spiritual development side of things that helps get through these seasons. So the other side was the shadow work, right? And the shadow work is getting into, noticing triggers and limiting beliefs, getting into that level of things and working through that kind of stuff. And the thing is, part of that over time is that you do learn to accept exactly where you're at and move forward from there. So these are the things I actually talk about with people in the Vitality Matrix Method program, because we have to talk about stuff related to the mind. That's why, in some, I'll have myself labeled in certain places as a mind body transformational coach, because you can transform your body without transforming your mind in some cases. People can follow something, but it's not true deep transformation. And a lot of times it won't stick if that's the case. And most people will not get to their goals and will not get through life very well if you don't have the deep transformation, because the truth of the matter is that everything really starts from within. When you want to change your life, it starts from within. So,
I saw
during
an educator with like 6-year-olds. You could see it.
Mhm.
And my first goal was to do exactly what you're saying. How can we change, the verbiage that's already in that child's mind, right?
Mhm.
Having said that, that's the verbiage that is stuck with the child, the person, through life, that's keeping
Mhm.
them stuck and repeating the same behaviors or finding the same relationships because they haven't dealt with exactly what you're saying, looking to the root cause and figuring,
Mhm.
having that conversation and changing that.
Mhm.
You don't, you and it's not like a one-time thing. You're going to find yourself being triggered again, again, and again. So when you feel yourself being triggered, ready to blow your top, increased anxiety, da da da, look at the situation you're in and think back to when did you first feel that way? I know we've had the discussion before, and this could be for it's a deeper dive, and so that could be for another time. But if you're being triggered, there's a reason. And I know that people say, just find gratitude, have your affirmations, go to meditation, da da da. But if you don't deal with the root cause, you're really just pushing down that emotion and that hasn't been processed, that created the false belief that's often negative, that's holding you back in life. It's pushing it down. If you understand the trigger and you resolve that, then those other things can elevate you to a whole new level.
Yeah, because those things, if left unresolved, you're trying to elevate yourself, but you have a gravity that's pulling you in another direction, right? So unprocessed emotions are definitely something that you want to deal with. Now, in terms of stress and the holidays, and something to be taken from that is, if you're triggered during the holidays and maybe you don't know how to release these emotions, maybe you don't have these tools to break down where these triggers are coming from and figure them out, but you can still pause and make a note of it and then come back to it later, even if you don't know how to deal with it. Starting with awareness of it is great, because a lot of times you're not even aware of what's happening. So if you're feeling agitated, it's like, step back. And that's the easiest thing that you can do if you don't know what to do.
Adam,
Pardon?
right? I slipped up with you and I said, you take a step back, or people take their phones out all the time. If you think you want to say something and it might not be appropriate, take your phone out, put it in your notes. And then
Yeah.
once you jot that down, you're like, damn, I wouldn't say that to another human being, let alone myself, if it's that negative self-talk. But if you're thinking, because we all do. I mean, if
Mhm.
we all
Yeah.
have thoughts about other people at some point. So rather
Hmm.
than say it, go write it down and then look at it and go, that's just dumb because there's this, that, and the other. Don't, you've dumped that
You've dumped it. You've processed it by getting it out.
instead of dumping it onto an individual.
Yeah. And I think could have been a different president. I think it was Theodore Roosevelt who wrote letters, and there was like hundreds of letters, I believe, that were found that were written but never mailed, because that's exactly what he did. He had these things he wanted to say to people, and he'd write it all out into a letter, and then actually wouldn't mail the letter, and that was just a way that he processed things sometimes. So yeah, that's actually a really good technique. Now, what I was gonna say as something that can help over the holidays is kind of related to one thing we talked about earlier, which was taking like a little micro break, pausing, reflecting, taking just a little bit of time for yourself. So in terms of being triggered, if you're triggered by something, you're feeling agitated, when that happens, you're in a contracted state, guaranteed. They're 100%. There's no way you're not in a contracted state. There's more fear there. And that's when things start popping up from, could be patterns from past, limiting beliefs, whatever it is. But you're going to notice just agitation. And then the thing is, if you're in a more agitated state, we've all been there before. Somebody could be in front of you and do something that's nothing normally, but that could agitate you too, right? So if you're in an agitated state,
kind of like, and the littlest thing is going to cause you to flip your lid, even though normally, if you were at, balanced, it wouldn't phase you.
Exactly. So, if you want to get rid of that agitated state, if you have no tools, the simplest thing you could do is step away from whatever situation you're in and go chill out by yourself for a little bit, because naturally you're going to become less agitated when you're relaxed. Now, if you want to take it a little bit further than that, you can do some breath work, breathing into your stomach, even just breathing in and out your nose, not even using that 2 breaths in, 1 breath out technique. If you just breathe in and out your nose, that particular breath pattern will calm your mind as well. It'll actually calm thought, right?
Basically, in and just out. All that.
Yeah.
But if you find that with, we talked about again, aromatherapy, like, balance is grounding. The adaptive, well, it says it all. You're adapting, serenity, you're serene. There's things you can couple with those techniques that are going to go beyond the breath work, right? The aromatherapy is going to transcend the blood-brain barrier, send the signals to the brain. It's like a text message, which then sends to your gut a lot of the things that are produced. But that was the other thing I wanted to mention, is the microbiome. You have to keep your microbiome happy. It's like your second brain. They're communicating constantly. I heard at a workshop, it's like your gut is like your mom. And if mom is happy, the whole household is happy.
Yeah.
It's not, watch out. And it's kind of with your body, right? Your body. And when we splurge, and it's not a one-time thing, it's a cumulative thing, but it's been shown that even one unhealthy meal, being like processed food, like, lots of sugar, that kind of thing, it destroys your microbiome. And your microbiome, I'm talking about the gut-brain axis, but it includes like your nasal, your mouth, your eyes, your vaginal tract, like any mucosal, I can never pronounce that right, but again, your microbiome is diverse. It's not just in your gut, it's your whole body. We're like a living organism, like the planet. Your body is the same. It has, good and bad bacteria, and the good bacteria is helping you to stave off things to creep up inside your body that are not serving you. And so keeping your microbiome healthy is super important too. And if you're eating unhealthy day after day after day, and you wonder why we see, disease cropping up that used to crop up late stages in life, it's creeping up earlier and earlier, because we take our health for granted till we don't have it, so to speak. I know that as a young adult, didn't have a weight issue. I never thought about what I was eating, not eating. We didn't have the education then. It was like, what was on the TV your mom went and bought at the grocery store, like the sugary cereals and whatnot. We didn't understand the ramifications
Hmm.
of sugar in and of itself, let alone processed food, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, for over the holidays, you can get your microbiome back by supplementing that. But if you're doing that day in and day out, it's not going to happen today or tomorrow, but over time, it allows dis-ease to crop in.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, and it, and it's so important. Like you cannot trick your biology. You
Yeah.
cannot. And the way I like liken it to people is, you're not going to put transmission fluid in the gas tank of your car. You're going to destroy your car, right? Even if it's mostly gas and you throw a little bit of that in, it might run depending on how much is in, but at some point won't even run. Now, the thing is, our body can actually still run in conditions where we're not giving it the right food. But what happens is it breaks down over time. You don't feel your best. You're going to have more inflammation. Your joints are going to break down faster. You're going to have neuroinflammation, so you're not going to have as good a focus and concentration, which then makes your decision making poor. There's a lot of ramifications to not eating the right foods, right? So,
And especially, like with the blood glucose spikes and peaks, no, peaks
mhm,
down, got the word wrong there, but it's like the same thing as the car. You're pushing the gas pedal and then you're slamming the brakes, and you're pushing the gas pedal and you're slamming the brakes. Well, what's that going to do
mhm,
over time? That's what
exactly.
guide you, but we don't know it because we don't see it
Yeah,
until it rears its ugly head.
I want to add to that one because I like that analogy right there. If you think about your car, if you're actually driving your car smoothly and it's like you do ease into the gas, you do ease into the brake, then you can imagine your car is going to operate more smoothly, right? You're going to have less things breaking down. And on the other hand, it's exactly what we're talking about. It's going to break down faster. Your body's the same way. And in terms of hormones in your body, if you're spiking and crashing like that, well, one of the things that's going to happen is that your insulin is going to become more and more elevated, which causes all kinds of dysregulation, which I can tell you that based on the research that elevation of insulin alone leads to obviously diabetes, but it also leads to cardiovascular disease, to stroke, to hypertension, and cancer. It's related to all of those things,
Yeah.
right? So your food is really important. And if you're not eating the right foods, well, guess what? That's a different type of stress on your body. Usually when we're talking about stress, you're thinking about mental stress. The thing is, if you stress your body out physically with food, that leads to the stress that we normally think about, which is mental stress. Why? Because, again, you eat the wrong foods, you're going to be tired. You're going to have more inflammation, which means you're not going to be able to concentrate and focus as well. You're not going to be as grounded, so you're going to be more agitated. You're going to have more mood swings, right? You're not going to be able to handle stress. So,
And it
Dorothy.
your microbiome, which affects your brain. Like again, it's that whole system, right? Like
Mhm,
if we don't take care of our planet, which we are seeing the results of, what happens,
mhm. So,
right?
Doris, want me to give a quick summary of what we went through here? What
Perfect.
stands out to me?
Yeah,
Yeah, because we're getting close. I think
yeah. I think we're closer, not overboard. I'm sorry we started a bit late, but
technical difficulties trying to make multiple streams happen. Um,
didn't happen. Sorry.
didn't happen. So here we are. Um, so I'll break it down into categories. So we just talked about nutrition and a lot of the effects that it has. Exercise, we didn't get too much into it, but
We
exercise,
talked last time.
yeah, we got into that last week a lot. So, when you have these pent up feelings from more challenging days and whatnot, exercise is going to be really helpful. That can take down your stress a lot. Now, you can stress out if you're if you have this goal to get these workouts in and you can't get them in because you're busy, you get stressed out because of that. So that could actually have the opposite effect if you're not planning and doing these things. So you want to make sure that you do things in a way that, you know, feels natural to you. Schedule these things in if you can, right? But maybe during the holidays, like we said last week, the tip would be maybe you figure out the kind of like your minimum viable workout and the one that, you know, you find does the most for you. Maybe it's doing HIIT training, non-negotiable. Yeah, exactly. Figure out what that baseline is for you. Try to stick to that. Maybe you cut down your exercise sessions. You know, you do a longer one if you have time to, but when you're busy, it's like still try to get it in, but do something that doesn't take you as long if you know something like that, right? So exercise is huge in terms of increasing emotional resilience, taking down your stress, maybe burning a little of that cortisol off, right? So exercise mentally, it's like the tip they were giving today is, you know, to take micro breaks, relax, reflect, step away from social situations, right? You could stay immersed, but you probably burn yourself out. So step away. If you're out shopping, take a little break. Sit down a little bit during the day here and there so that if you want to sit down at night, you're not just going to collapse at the end of your day, right? So micro breaks there. Doris mentioned aromatherapy, so you can use something relaxing like a lavender or something, and that will go directly to your brain. So basically, if you're feeling like you need to chill for a moment, you can put some of that in your hands, breathe it in, right? That'll relax you. And you know what? For some people, most people, lavender works, but there's other combinations. And if you wonder what combinations would work for that, you can talk to Doris about that. So on the mental side of things, one thing I want to reiterate is that, you know, if you're feeling triggered, you're feeling a little overwhelmed or something, you know, step back. You're in a contracted state, so you want to step back, relax, maybe zoom out, you know, get yourself out of just thinking about what's in that situation. Just relax, zoom out, which naturally happens as you relax, by the way. When you're in a more relaxed state, you can zoom out more easily,
Bird's eye.
right? Bird's eye view, check in with yourself. How am I feeling right now? Okay, cool. We'll just chill. Anything that I need to be thinking about? Because that's another thing that happens that stresses people out over the holidays. It's like you have a bunch of things you need to do. You're a little overwhelmed. There's a lot going on, and then things are going to slip out of your mind. And then if you don't take that time to reflect, all of a sudden later on, you're like, oh no, I forgot to do that. Oh no, I forgot to do that. And that causes a problem. So checking in with yourself more often will stop that from happening, right? You can keep on track and not feel like it's just like a hamster wheel that you're on, right?
And we talked about planning and maybe making lists because, like you said, you have it in your head and then you forget. Well, maybe if you write it down and check it off, you don't have to keep having it in your head.
Yeah, getting it down on paper goes a long way. And then the other thing is, it's great to have a notepad around. Honestly, when you're shopping, going through the holidays, you know, you might come across something. There's going to be a lot of things that say stimulate thoughts. It could be a gift for somebody or any number of things that you may have forgotten in all the overwhelm that pops into your head. Well, guess what? That's in your head and it's stuck in your head, and that's the only place that it is, unless you at that moment write it down or write it in your phone
In your phone,
and don't think about it.
right? You're perfect. You got a notebook on the go.
Yeah, because that's part of the overwhelm, is that these things are in your head and you need to get them out on paper, right? You just need to get them out there. It doesn't mean that you're going to put them all on paper and then act on all that, but you get it out on paper. And then we talked about, you know, taking micro breaks, but the other thing is that you want to take a little bit of time each week, especially during the holidays, and it's better to do this more than once, to stop yourself and get into a good state of mind and then plan things out like once a week for the week. During busier times, the week's going to change, things are going to change, and you have to adapt to that too. So if there's a lot of change going on, you might need to take another half hour during the week, maybe a couple other 15-minute times where you're sitting down planning to make sure things go smoothly. And that honestly is so important. The more that's going on, the more time you need to take, reflect, and plan. Right? So if you're busy during the holidays,
And I
you
might,
want to do more of that.
the less that you have going on is important to plan because when I retired, that's how we
Mhm.
again we connected way before with physical goals and weight loss. But after retirement, I thought, oh, I don't have to plan anything. I don't have the bells going off every however many minutes and, this, and this. And then I realized, you know what? It's the saying, the less you do, the less you're going to do. So
Hmm.
I did need to start planning, not the same way. And I don't want the same chaos, right? Like
Hmm.
working, I'm like, how did I manage to have, children and their activities and raising them and, and a business and how did I do all that? Well, you had to plan. You had to, or it won't,
Hmm.
right? You can't
Yeah.
work and not be prepared. Um, so somehow I thought, well, okay, the kids are grown up, they're gone, they have their own families, you're retired, you don't have all that commitment. Ah, I can just relax. Well, I didn't feel relaxed. I didn't feel fulfilled. I thought, well, now what's my purpose? And you had to fill in with other things. And unless you purposefully do that, you could find yourself going down a very dark space.
Yeah. And, that's a great point. That's on the other side of stress. So, like, that's having too little stress, right?
Yeah.
And, in terms of planning, when you're basing your life in a way, when you're working through life in a way that's going to be fulfilling, well, one of the things that you're going to do in that scenario is have a values-based decision-making model that you follow, right? You're putting more time and energy towards the things that you value most, basically, and you're doing that in a more intentional way. So, get out of retirement when you have some patterns in your life that have been there where somebody's, there's a lot of things you need to do, but you're not having to think about it because it's just been something you've done for so long. And all of a sudden that job, let's say you have, is gone. You have all this empty space. And then what happens? You're on the other side of stress. It's like, so say this is max stress. Here's no stress. Here's optimal zone. It's somewhere closer to the higher stress zone. That's optimal for us humans to stay motivated at the highest level. And you end up down here. Well, that's also a problem. But
Yeah.
I think the point there is that regardless of where your stress is at, you want to plan. And minimum viable planning, I think would be doing it once a week. When people are busier, I oftentimes, like with entrepreneurs, maybe you have a second planning session where they sit down for a shorter period of time. Maybe it's an hour or more once in a week, half an hour another time. If somebody's really high performer, then usually there's a planning the night before for the next day, and then looking at that at some point the next morning, right? So that would be like the maximal plan for planning. But on the other side, if you're not super busy, then you can get away with like planning maybe once a week, maybe having a second planning time, or maybe you like the process of, the at the end of the night reflecting on your day, seeing what went well, what didn't, a little bit of planning for the next day, because sometimes that works really well. If you can get in a routine of doing that, right, that works really, really well. Most people are not doing that. But if you at least plan once a week where you're actually keeping your values in mind, that is really great. And when you do that, guess what? You have less stress in your life as well, because when you're doing the things that are most important to you, then you're not going to be as stressed. Um, and one thing I want to say related to the holidays again is in terms of values, they shift during the holidays. Our values aren't concrete. So, when you're around family, when you're around people, the goal is being a little more relational a lot of the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to keep that in mind. It's like when you enter a situation, if you want to be intentional, think about what is the best thing for you to be doing in that situation. How can you be your best? What is the best thing for you to be doing? As opposed to just going in and being kind of lost and bouncing around. That's more stressful than going in there and knowing what you're trying to do. It's like, you go into a family gathering. If you know what you want to do, maybe it's like Doris said, you want to avoid a specific person, or maybe as opposed to trying to avoid something which is resistance, you focus on the things that you want to do, the people that you want to talk to. And if you do that, if you're intentional with the things you do throughout the holidays, you'll notice you'll be less stressed, because when you're being intentional, you're focusing on the things you can control, again, as opposed to the things that you can't.
Yeah.
Right?
And doing so with your strengths, because not everybody is relation, like, there's like in the Gallup poll, there's like 34 strengths, and not everybody is relational. Some people are more introverted. And if you are the more introverted type, then understand that and don't feel like you have to be the social butterfly in that setting, but be an observer, right?
Yeah, and that's so easy, right?
Be an
Just
observer.
exactly. If that's your natural self, then do that. Don't try to go out and do something you're uncomfortable with over and over again. Just try to just sit back and relax. So, is there anything else that you wanted to add into the summary of our
Uh,
talk today?
talked last time about the release technique. Um, I will say for myself, you can message me. I have a resource available for the 5 ways to stress less, to calm your mind and your nerves, especially over the holiday season. And that's a free guide. If you would like that, just message me and I'll send it off your way. It's also on a post I put on previously. And Adam, if someone would like to reach out for some guidance for you, where would they reach you?
So the best place to reach me is just to message me simply through Instagram. I love starting conversations via messages there. So if you're on Doris's side of things, I'm sure you could see my name there, but I'll throw it out anyway. It's Adam G. Arbour, Arbour. So reach out to me there. Now,
And of
because
course,
the
they can always just say, you know what, I saw you on with Adam. Can you connect me? And I'd happily share that info.
Yeah, and considering that the new year's coming in, it's not that far away. Obviously, people don't usually start health and fitness journeys during the holiday season. But because,
I always say, don't wait. Like, what could you do today rather than,
mhm,
right? We've
yeah,
talked
and I'm,
this strategy, we've talked about it the last 2 or 3. What can you do today rather than say, oh, the year's almost done. Why bother? No,
mhm,
what can you do today? A little thing. What little
yeah,
thing today that you didn't do yesterday that would serve your health?
exactly. And that's the intentional way of going through things. So, anybody that, that I'm working with or I've worked with, that's the place that we get to. Some people that are listening here, some people are not thinking that way and will wait to that time anyways, right? So hopefully you don't. Hopefully if you've been listening to anything we've been putting out there, that your decision making process during the holidays will be a slightly healthier one. But considering that the new year is coming, and I know a lot of people are going to, have the guilt from Christmas, overeating, and then have that motivation.
The pills, like what?
Yeah, yeah, and you have that motivation to get healthy and in shape and whatnot. I'm just reminding everyone that I have a health and fitness program. It's called the Vitality Matrix Method. It is a comprehensive program that's designed to get you results. It has the mindset pieces in there. It has the tools you need, the exercise programs, the education, the support, everything that you think you'd want in a program, and other things that you wouldn't even think about that are important to getting you to your goals. So I'm open to taking on a few more clients. So going into the new year, know that is something that will be open. I'll probably have a couple posts related to various promos coming up in the new year. But if you're curious about that too, feel free to reach out to me. It doesn't mean that just you ask a couple questions, and maybe you have questions related to health and weight loss that you want to ask. Don't feel like there's a barrier. It's like I'm there. People message me randomly. Like I'll answer the questions that you have. And if you're interested in something like that, that's something that you talk about. If that's something that you mentioned to me, so there's basically what I'm saying is there's zero pressure and to reach out to me, and I'm here to help people. I go to random groups sometimes and I just will enter into these groups for a little bit and give out free information and answer things, whatever, because that's all part of my mission, is just doing things like that as well. So if you're interested, if you've been maybe if the cycle, put it this way, if the cycle has happened where you start something at the beginning of the year and then you fall off track. If that's something that's happened to you again and again, or maybe you don't know where to start, you know, maybe you're just finally ready, right? For whatever the reason. without getting into the details of why you might be ready, maybe you're finally ready. Well, if you're in that place, and even if it's the first time you feel ready, but you don't know exactly what to do, I wouldn't want you to, you know, start a plan and fail because, 60 to 80% of people who start in January quit their health and fitness plan within 6 to 8 weeks, right? And that's research you can look up, and that's true. There's a number of reasons that I won't get into why that happens, which is why, if you're listening and you actually do really want to get in shape and you want to make sure that you're certain about the process and you know that you want it to guarantee in terms of your results as opposed to trying to, stab in the dark at this whole situation, then please feel free to reach out, because that's what I'm here to help you do.
Yeah.
Get the results that you want and feel good doing it.
Yep. And there's so much conflicting information on social media. So you want to reach out to someone like Adam, who has like over 20 years experience and a vast, amount of knowledge in different aspects that can support you, which I will, put myself out there. We connected years ago when I was 202 pounds, deconditioned, couldn't do a plank because I had back issues, which was part of it, the whole cycle of weight gain, and I had my thyroid removed, like a whole host of things. But then I made a decision that, well, what can I do that's in my control? And that's how we originally connected. And we stayed connected, and through life, things have happened, and we connected again through a gift my son gave me last Christmas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he saw my struggle, and I wasn't, that the things that were available for a few years weren't available. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was sliding backwards, and he recognized that, and he gifted me Adam.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been amazing. Amazing.
Yeah, that was, and I'll say that was, you've heard the term before, but you don't always see it. But he gave you the best gift, the gift of health, which was so awesome. And just so anybody listening knows, I do actually give people, if anybody ever wants to do that, I give discounts for that, because if somebody wants to do that for somebody else, and it's not a situation that happens very often, but it is Christmas time, and I always offer promos for that. I don't usually advertise them too much because it's a unique situation, but just know they get a pretty good discount if you actually wanted to do that for somebody else, or if you wanted to do it yourself with somebody else, also give discounts that way. So
yeah, and it to me, it's mind blowing. Like, what better gift can you give to another individual? And I say the same thing with the oils. It's a gift of a natural alternative for your health, right? It's the same thing. I mean, people will spend ridiculous amount of money that they don't have on stuff. What's the stuff going to do for you? Right? It might be, oh, that felt good to buy that, or oh, I got the fancy car, or oh, I have the bigger house. But what is that going to do for your health and wellness, your health span, as opposed to your lifespan, right? Like, you want to live life as long as you can, healthy. So
yeah,
gift yourself something like Adam, gift it to somebody else, do it with someone else. But because without your health, that shiny object is going to mean squat.
Yeah, not to be grim, but just to go along with what you're saying there, Doris. What are you going to do with all this stuff if you don't ever invest in your health? And a lot of people do not invest in their health, and I can't understand it. I feel like it's from not intentionally going through life. If you don't invest in health,
feel good, right? Like, or they feel good, or think they feel good, or they accept what they're feeling, right? Until it gets to the horrible. And then even then people don't act. Like, I don't get it.
Yeah. Well, I think, just to say something about that, I think that a lot of times people don't know what it feels like to be healthy, and they don't know that they have more control over their health than they think, right?
Mm-hmm.
But going back to Doris's question, it's like, what good are these possessions and these things if you end up with an irreversible disease, which can happen from just eating improperly and your insulin levels being out of control? It happens, right? What happened? What are those things going to do for you when you're lying in bed and all you want is your health back? It's like, honestly, don't wait that long. If you know you're not taking care of your health, if you're not working out, eating right, you're not taking care of your health. They sound like simple things, but those things matter. Or, it could be mentally. If you're not taking care of yourself physically, a lot of times mentally you're having issues too, and then you're stressed out, and then that will break your body down. So, health is a very holistic thing and needs to be treated that way. And I encourage people to invest in your health, invest in ways that make sense for you, and do your best that way, because we have one life here. Our physical body can go a long way, if you do the right things, right? I know I've seen the results in myself, how I can move and how I feel, and over the years. And I'm almost 43 now, and when I go play volleyball with some of the people I play with, hey, right? I'm out there playing with people that are much younger than me, but I can move better than most of the people that are there because, taking care of things.
And my 50-year-old yoga instructor, she does jujitsu with 20 and 30-year-olds, and she takes them down and like, how do you do it? I went through 40 hours of labor.
Right? That's how it should be. If we knew how to take care of ourselves here, that's how it should be. Be more like kung fu, where you grow in usefulness. Here we go through a cycle where we're not useful until a certain age, then we're useful in society, and then we're not useful at the end of our life. But
you're done. And
yeah,
I'm seeing like these groups, like people in their, they consider them 50, 60. I'm in a 70-year-old group. I'm heading there. But you should see some of the people in there. I'm like, holy crap, you're in better condition than some 20-year-olds.
Right? Exactly, right? So, that's a little bit of an aside, but, one thing I try to tell people on a regular, semi-regular basis is, try not to think that age means decline. A lot of the decline we have physically, mentally, emotionally is literally because we're not taking care of our health. Literally. Like, I feel better now than I did when I was 20, They're movement-wise, I'm not very far off, right? It takes work to do that. It takes work to be in a better place, but you can progressively get better over time. And you can start at any age too, right? You can start at any age, and it's never too late. And health is, we're talking about all these different concepts in health. The truth is about health. You could think of not doing anything, right? And your body can stay alive. And then you start working out. Oh, elevate it a bit more there. And you start eating the right food. Boom. And you start meditating. Boom. You start learning about breathing, and you add that in. You start learning about sound therapy, light therapy, other biomedical devices. Like, there's all kinds of things that you can do. The truth is, to elevate ourselves and to be in the best place possible, it takes a little bit of all that. So the group of people that I have together, call them the Health Warriors. Why? Because I feel like, there is a focus and intention. It's like, it's not like you're battling against something. I say warriors, but it's not like you're battling against something. But you have to have this warrior-like mentality when it comes to your health. It's like you have to do your best to be strong, to be intentional, right? To move in that direction. And if you're not doing that, if you're not building yourself up and growing, you're going in the other direction. It's as simple as that, right?
So reach out. You don't know where to start. You don't know what to do. You think, oh yeah, that all sounds great, but what do I do? Reach out. You can reach out to Adam. You can reach out to me for natural alternatives, and it's sort of coupled with some of these steps. It can be a combination, but start. Get started.
Get started. Don't wait till it's too late.
Yeah.
Right? Awesome, Doris.
Proactive. It's living a healthy lifestyle, and there's different pillars. We can talk about that another time, but yeah.
Start early, finish late.
Yeah, but we talked about this way back, but we're born we go through life as we're raised, then you're in school, and then you have if you have family or your career, and you put yourself aside. You need to start, and I see it with my grandchildren. They're putting health and showing them the healthy way early. So hopefully it becomes their lifestyle earlier than it did even for them. Well, they're good. I had them in a lot of stuff. But my generation, for example, you know, people in their, well, 60s, we put ourselves aside. We did. There was no for most of us, if I'm honest. There wasn't. I'm seeing more of it now at a younger age, which is awesome. Yeah.
It is awesome. And you know what? It's part of adapting to our world right now because, you know, there's less and less physical activity in school, more and more screen time, less play outside, you know. So at this point in time, you really have to, on that note, you really have to teach your kids healthy patterns. You have to teach them about health because you're not learning this stuff.
Yeah.
Like unless you're digging into yourself or working with some mentor or something like this. Most people I talk to about health related things have no clue, to be honest, and our society just confuses everyone about it. So
no, and if you don't know what to do, then what are you modeling to your children? So connect with someone like Adam who does know, find out, and then you can pass that along.
Yeah, exactly. Be a great role model for your kids growing up.
Yeah.
So important. Yeah. Well, Doris.
Okay.
Great talk today.
Great call. Thank you. I see a few people who joined us. I appreciate that. If you're watching the replay, can you put hashtag replay when it comes up? And you can comment in there, put any questions you have. I will post my effective ways to calm nerves in there as well. And can I put in the comment? I put your. Will that work in the posted to app?
Definitely.
Perfect. I will put that in as well.
All right. Awesome.
All right. See you all next week.
See you then.
Thanks.
Have a great week and happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Bye.